I didn't realize this, Sammy, but the trophy case at Hallis Hall is going to need to be expanded because apparently the Bears have won 9 Super Bowls this season. Because now it feels like every time the Bears beat somebody, the opposing team fan base comes in and is like, well, that was your Super Bowl. That was your Super, which by the way, New Orleans Saint fan, that's a little egregious. Like we had a nice rivalry in the early 2000s. I always appreciated it. I always appreciated going up against Sean Payton and everything like that. But still, it was not our Super Bowl when we beat the Saints, nor was it our Super Bowl when we beat the Giants as well. As a matter of fact, even beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, like it was fine. You enjoyed beating the Pittsburgh Steelers, but Aaron Rodgers wasn't playing for obvious reasons. Watching him this weekend, you understand why he wasn't out there. But now the Packer fans, and not only that, typically though, it's after the fact. Like somebody will come by after the fact and be like, "Oh, that was your Super Bowl." The Packer fans are already announcing right now that this is our Super Bowl. And there was a tweet. I don't want to give this guy power and put his name out there because he's an idiot. But he's like, "Oh, this is just a regular game to the Packers. It's a Bears Super Bowl." Yeah, whatever. Like this, that is the kind of wording that somebody who is already sipping the copium would say. They have already decided that the Bears are going to win this game, and they're already going out there and trying to make their excuses, already trying to say that the Bear, like, oh, this meant so much to the Bears. It's like that scene in Rudy where Vince Vaughn's character is like, oh, Rudy's playing every play like this is the Super Bowl. And Ara Parseghian's like, you just went from the third team to the scout team. Get out of here. And that's what I feel about the Green Bay Packers right now. If you don't feel like this is an important game, then I don't know what to do with you. So, Sammy, let's just go ahead and start the show.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast with Adam Ray.
It's Hester trying to work it back to the middle. Gets past the first wave, and here he goes. It's Hester inside the 30. Hester's going to take it all the way for a touchdown. And no flag, 92 yards.
The sickest Chicago Bears and fantasy football podcast. Sports entertainment like no other. It's gonna be sick.
It's Wednesday night. You know what that means? And it's time for Take It to the Rank. A great night to talk Chicago Bears. Not only is this show going to be on, after this, the Tape Never Lies Network with our friends Phil and Shane will be on. We also have AEW Dynamite tonight. I think the challenge is finishing tonight. I am so disinterested in the challenge, but what I am interested in is Trigon 4102 said, yo, first time catching you live, bro. Listen, so excited for you to be here, catching the show live. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have a great time tonight. We're going to be joined here in just a matter of seconds by our good friend Greg Bragg from CHGO. But before we do that, I want to let everybody know, a quick reminder to everybody, that I'm going to be at the Twisted Shamrock out in Chicago on December 13th, the night before we take on the Cleveland Browns. And I didn't realize this until I was talking to our friend Nick yesterday, being like, oh, I'm taking a big risk because the tenor in Chicago could go from like it's super excited to super morose, depending on what happens this weekend. And this weekend is going to be a great game. And to talk about it here is our co-host, as he joins us every Wednesday from CHGO, a man of the people, the man in the stands. It is Greg Braggs. Braggs, how you living right now?
Oh, obviously we're living great around here, Adam Rank, as we are officially in December fighting for the top of the NFC.
Top of the table, baby. Top of the table is definitely in the offering right now. And one of the reasons why is that the Bears had a huge victory. Let's get this sound out of the way. Let's listen to Ben Johnson in the locker room after the game on Friday. Sammy, can we roll that sound, please?
I know you guys are hungry for more, right? Itching.
Yeah.
Let me tell you something. The city of Chicago's hungry too. The city of Chicago.
Oh, oh.
Let's go.
Oh my God. You know what's funny is I started watching the Hard Knocks in season NFC East, and it's striking to me listening to like Schottenheimer and all these other coaches, like Ben Johnson is on another level compared to some of the other coaches in the league. What do you think? But first of all, you went there, you went and got the free hot dogs. What was that experience like? I know you went back in September after the Caleb Williams 4-touchdown game. How did it differ this time going out there in the snow in December compared to what happened earlier in the year?
It's kind of bizarre. It's almost like fate, like when we went in September, it was after the Cowboys game and they were 1-2 on the season. But you wouldn't have known it if you were at the Weiner Circle that day, and for whatever reason, it's just like I said, it's like fate. Like before the Cowboys game, the Weiner Circle says Caleb throws 4 touchdowns, free hot dogs for the city. And it happened. And I don't really think we realized in that moment, that should have been the sign. This was going to be a different year. And the turnout was incredible in September for a team that it started the season 0-2. At that point, when they had started 0-2, they had lost 12 of their last 13 games, right? But all of a sudden, things kind of turned from that. And to come all the way to the end of November here, early December, and all these fans are there. You have all these different fans ripping their shirts off, chanting good, better, best. There's a fever now in this city that's culminated from that first meetup in September to now. And it's snowballing into this game against the Packers on Sunday, which it's just it feels like the Bears feel like a freight train. They feel like a freight train, and the city is just absolutely on fire right now. And it's so contagious. It's so contagious. And it's so much fun to be a part of as a fan. So, I mean, the vibes were just incredible at Weiner Circle, and it's just one of those things that you can't get enough of as a fan.
Yeah, Bad Kitty is saying Chicago streets are lit, and just going around Bears Twitter, you see this. There it is. You see this whole thing going on with Bears Twitter, and people are remarking about this. Whomever it is, our friends who tweet all the time, but they talk about. Even Jay was talking. I'm doing it again. Nick was talking about this too. It's like everybody's wearing blue and orange. Everybody's fist bumping. Everybody, I know that you work in sports, but when you walk down to Target from your office, you notice oh my God, everybody here is supporting the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, absolutely. I said it a few weeks ago when I was at Costco. When you see a Bears fan now, it's how about them Bears? And it's one of those things where it's more of last year, if you'd see a fan during the 10-game losing, you're like, oh boy, shake your head at each other. We're both going through this. I feel for you, brother. Try to enjoy your holidays. And now it's forget the holidays. We got the Bears and Packers to worry about here the next couple weeks. So yeah, you definitely feel that, camaraderie in the city. The funny thing about the good, better, best, and Ben Johnson ripping his shirt off, I think it's twofold. One, we talked to Tyson Bagent earlier today on CHGO Bears, and he's a really fun interview, and he's got a lot of energy and stuff. And, he was like, I didn't really know what he was doing because, I think the thing that we don't realize as fans is I think there's probably a good majority of the players in the locker room that didn't know what he was talking about with the hot dogs. They didn't realize that he had been put up against this. And then I think the other half of the whole fact that he took his shirt off was, and I put this up on Twitter yesterday, but I think it is getting lost that there is this Twitter account named Cream Sleeve who we call the Cream, and he tweets nonsense. He's funny and crazy and quirky, and he's come out of absolutely nowhere in the last 6 months, and he purports as a fake custodian at Hallis Hall.
Wait, he's not?
We don't know. It cannot be confirmed or denied. But I'm not going to confirm it. I'll have the Bears yelling at me if I start saying he's a real custodian at Hallis Hall. So I don't know. All I know is he's funny. Then the fans take on with him. Now he's printing hats and people are buying cream sleeve apparel. And he tweets at Weiner Circle that, hey, can we get Ben Johnson to rip his shirt off? And then the Weiner Circle then directs that request to the Bears and Ben Johnson. And then the media asks Ben about the cream sleeve tweet. And then all of a sudden, 2 months later, you've got Ben Johnson ripping his shirt off in this crazed moment, one of the more pinnacle moments in a Bears season in 10 years, and what will go down as the statement moment of the Ben Johnson era. Like when we look back at when Ben Johnson's hoisting the Lombardi, the starting blocks will be the Eagles game where they put their stamp on the map that we are here. And it all started with this guy named Cream on Bears Twitter. And like, that's where I just think like we focus so much on the negativity in social media at times. And I just think that right there is a perfect example of what makes Bears fans special, what makes Bears Twitter fun. And when you find a guy that, does something like that and it turns into something that creates actual culture within the locker room and now is spreading across downtown Chicago where people are ripping their shirts off all over the place. I saw Spice Adams and Peanut Tillman on a pod ripping their shirts off. Like everybody's doing it. And it's all because of this guy named Cream. Like you wouldn't be able to explain this to any other fan base but ours.
No, it defies logic. And I'm bummed too, because I was going to do it here, but now everybody's doing it. And I'm like, I can't do it. I'm also that person like, now that everybody's doing it, I'm not going to follow the trend. But in any event, it's been amazing. And cream sleeve is one of those things where I wish I had thought of it. Like now I'm angry. Like, why didn't I think of this? Like, why didn't I? And I used to do this back when I used to run like a message board, is having an alter ego, like a burner account where you were like, oh, and then eventually you're like, oh yeah, by the way, Parman is me. Like, oh, like who knew? Just like doing dumb things like this. But it's funny because it has become a big part of Bears Twitter. Bears Twitter has been amazing, especially when you go out there and win. And it's funny because I'm trying to think where I'm going with this, but it has just been a lot of camaraderie. And I know there's still people out there, like there's still outliers. There are still people who don't want to believe, who don't want to think about like, I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. And it's fine. If it's been working this way for you this long, then you might as well continue at the bit. But I want to see the Dirty Dogs post right here. And for the record, regarding the opening, the cold open here, the Bears Super Bowl will be the Super Bowl. And I agree with the Dirty Dog 1961 that, this will be the one thing. Like, it doesn't feel, it seems stupid to even talk about it a couple of weeks ago, but now it's starting to make a little bit more sense. We got a super chat right here talking about Ben Johnson wins a Super Bowl before Dan Campbell. Now, this is where I believe in this team, and I do believe that we have a good opportunity this season. I don't think this is a fluke. I think the way the Bears are playing football right now, bullying opposing teams with the way that they run the football, with the way the offensive line manhandles things, I don't think it's out of the question to say this. However, I will say, do not take shots at the Lions. Like the Lions are still a pretty good football team. I still have a lot of respect for Dan Campbell. I think they need to get some stuff in order. I think they need to go out there and figure out their own house. They're going to figure out who's going to be calling plays, but still a formidable organization. I don't want to get ahead of myself, especially with one more game still to play with them. But let's turn our attention to Sunday. Now, the excitement, and I know we've covered everything with the Philadelphia angle as much. We did it on Monday on CHGO. We've been talking about it during the week. We went to the Weiner Circle. What is your feeling like heading into this game against the Green Bay Packers? Because for me, for the first time in a long time, I'm not dreading playing the Green Bay Packers. I'm actually looking forward to it if I foolishly convince myself that we're better than we are.
No, I think after last week against the Eagles, the Bears certainly showed something, I think, beyond anything they've showed this season that should give you a different level of confidence going into a really tough game here on Sunday. But that being said, I mean, I still think that, it's one of those things where the Packers are at home and they really, if you look at it from their lens, like this is a must win for them, in a lot of ways. And I know I'm big on the must wins and what's house money, but like to me, the Bears are still playing with a little bit of a margin of error, and I think that helps you. Like they don't have to play in desperation mode. And sometimes when you're not in desperation mode, you can play with another level of confidence. It's like shooting a free throw at the free throw line in a tie game with 2 seconds on the clock versus being down. Like it's a different level of confidence that you can, execute what you need to do. So I do think the Bears do have a little bit of that going for them here in this game. Now, the biggest question is can they do what they did against the Eagles again? Because if they can, they will beat the Green Bay Packers. They will. And now we're talking about, can they win the NFC? Can they get to the Super Bowl? I mean, we're already in those conversations, but it'd be a much more legitimate fight at that point if you beat Green Bay this week. And if you think the city's on fire right now, if they beat Green Bay on Sunday, it's going to be crazy here. I would, if I were you, Rank, coming to the Browns game, I'd just come on Monday and be here for the whole week. It's going to be insane. And, but I'm still nervous. You were talking about this early in the show, like Packer fans hedging, like, oh, this is your Super Bowl. I do think Bears fans, I see a few hedging out there like, oh, well, we're not nervous because we didn't expect any of this at this point. And that's certainly true, but it's all on the line now. It's all on the line for both teams. And any fan out there pretending like they're not excited or nervous or terrified or, all of the emotions that you should legitimately have at this point are just lying to themselves. So any Packer fan out there that acts like they're not fearful of what could happen on Sunday is lying. And so I'm going to just be honest. And it's the same as last week. I desperately want this team to make the playoffs. I wasn't even realizing a scenario of dreaming of them going to an NFC Championship or Super Bowl. And now I am raising my expectations. But with that being said, that they got to win this game on Sunday. So I am terrified. I want them desperately to win this game. Do I think they can? I think they got a really good puncher's chance, but I'm not downplaying how good the Green Bay Packers are. I think they have a much more talented quarterback than most Bears fans will give credit for. And they've, this is at their house. It's at Lambeau. This is a tough place to play. And so the Bears are going to have to put out an even better effort than they did against the Eagles to come away with this win. It's not going to be easy, but Devontae Wyatt, their defensive tackle being out, I think certainly makes a mark because that is going to impact how they game plan for Micah Parsons. And I think that helps give the Bears a little bit of an advantage where they can slide protections where you have this guy in the middle, this anchor that's not there anymore. They don't have Kenny Clark there as well in that defensive tackle, that interior defensive line. So I think there's some things there that the Bears can take advantage of, but I can't wait to get to Sunday to find out.
Yeah, Andrew Barankowski is writing, as a longtime Bears fan, I have to admit that I believe that we are not only going to get into the playoffs, we're going to win some of those games. I still believe next year we will be dominating. And Andrew, if I use this as a jumping off point, one of the things that gives me the most confidence, now back in the day when Nagy was coaching or anybody like that, I was always hopeful. I think I would go into these games being like, I hope this is like, there is something like we were doing it without evidence. We were like, well, Matt Nagy coming from the Chiefs has these schemes. It should be the thing with Ben Johnson right now is that there is a proof of concept that we have seen. And one of the best things that we saw out of the Bears on Friday, just basically, number one, you win the football game. But number two, it's a style of football that travels. And you hear this expression all the time. Will this travel? Offensive lines travel. This is not a thing like, obviously Green Bay played great on Thanksgiving because of course they did. They played indoors against one of the worst secondaries in the NFL. Nobody talks about that because only the Bears, the Patriots, the Broncos, only those teams have to justify their wins. But when the Packers go out and beat a team that loses Amon-Ra St. Brown in the fourth play of the game and plays a banged up team, like they get into the MVP conversation. The rest of us have to go back out there and explain why we're so good. But the evidence is there and the concept is there. And I know a lot of people are asking, like, well, can they do the same thing? Can they run it? Like, it's not going to look the same. Like, you got to disguise it. Like, that's one of the best things about Ben Johnson is that he will find ways to do the same thing, but make it look different. So when Green Bay is watching it on tape, they're like, oh, well, we know to expect this when this happens. And then all of a sudden the Bears pull out a new wrinkle. If you've seen over the last couple of weeks, the Bears have increased their usage of 13 personnel, which means 3 tight ends on the field at the same time. The Bears are finding creative ways to do things, to do the same things, but make it look different, which is why I get a lot of confidence. And when you look at Green Bay historically, and you can go back to the Mike McCarthy era, the reason the Packers have lost traditionally in NFC playoff games against teams like the San Francisco 49ers is because the Packers they were facing a team like the 49ers that ran the ball really well, used the offensive line to their advantage. There's reasons why Colin Kaepernick ran all over them. They beat him with another quarterback. I think they beat him with the Robbie Gould game too, is they find ways to go out there and bully their opponents. Before we go on, I want to see a super chat right here from Mike, who says, Mike OTM, big fans of both of you in the media game. Thank you so much. Greg, thank you for sharing my tattoo. Bear down. Thanks for being media inspirations. I might have hold on. If I have this, I might have made if this is the one that I'm thinking of, Sammy, I'll drop this in the chat for you. And if we could roll that, if we get it, we can roll it. If not, sorry, I'm doing this live.
Yeah, but and while you're doing that, I'll just kind of add to your point on making the same things look different and different things look the same. Ben Johnson's motto when he first came in his introductory press conference. I think the other aspect of it is now what we're seeing, and this is where I think you have to, if you're Peter Brukowski, you got to throw some of these metrics out the window a little bit. I understand there are some certain tendencies and things you can follow in terms of the data, but I think the thing that you have to acknowledge is they were still building the playbook the first 4 to 6 games of the season. They didn't figure out who they were as a run team until after the bye in week 5 against the Commanders, week 6. And so now they have stacked games, stacked game plans against different teams. And now they're able to use those game plans, that tape from these previous 12 games, and use it against the teams that they're playing against. They couldn't, they had the element of surprise early on, but now they have the element of how can we counter you? We know we threw a punch. Now you're throwing the counter punch, and here comes Ben Johnson throwing the counter to your counter. And that's football. That it's a game of chess, and Ben Johnson is a chess master.
Yeah. And we see how successful he was in the short week. Now you're giving him a full week to go out there and try to work on not only how he's going to counter what the Packers were able to do so successfully on Thanksgiving, but also give the Bears a new opportunity to go try some different things this week. And speaking of trying new things, if you have not tried Huel, this needs to be a must for you. It's fast, nutritious, complete food, complete meals, ready when you are, balanced nutrition in every meal, snack, and drink. This bottle right here has 35 grams of protein, and it's made for busy days like today. This is the third show that I've done so far. I've got more stuff going on later on tonight, but Huel is going to keep me going, and you can try it out right now, and new time users can get 15% off if you go to huel.com/sickbears. That's huel.com/sickbears. First order, 15% off, and I will implore you, especially during this busy holiday season, you can go out there and use Huel, and it's better than going to the drive-thru, is what I basically am going to say. So speaking of metrics, though, going back to the point you're making about Peter Bukowski and all these guys, like all the analytics people always love to come out and they're like, Caleb has the worst completion percentage or anything. Isn't it time to like start looking at different things now? Because it feels like I understand where everybody is coming from, but at the same time, it feels ridiculous because the Bears are being incredibly successful.
Well, I think it's a culture of paralysis by analysis, and it's a culture of everyone has to be the smartest football fan to ever fan and to ever watch a game. And if you're not watching the game with all the collection of data you possibly can, then what's the point in watching? Like, especially on social media, the battle of who can be the smartest fan and come up with the most stats and graphs and everything to, really hammer home their point or whatever they're trying to make. A lot of times it's an agenda or a bias. And I admittedly use graphs to my advantage when they make my point. Of course. Why wouldn't I? If PFF makes a stat that I don't agree with, then PFF sucks. But if it's a stat PFF busts out that, highlights how great my team is, I'm hitting the retweet button. That's how it goes. This is the game we play. Obviously completion percentage is a pretty straightforward, stat. And I say that with tongue in cheek, but at the same time, Caleb Williams is playing winning football. And Ben Johnson talked about that the other day, how he has been executing the quarterback position to the way he wants. And the next step for these guys is to get the passing game humming is accuracy and timing on their routes. And that's not just a quarterback thing. I think that's a full team effort in terms of the receivers and the quarterback. And I don't think there's anything wrong with understanding that there's still untapped potential, but to use it as a slight or a point to say, see, he's not going to work out because of this stat. I think you're not seeing the forest through the trees. You're not watching these games, because if you can't see how Caleb Williams is significantly improving game to game, then, that's just your agenda. I'm sorry. If this is a quarterback that got sacked 68 times last year, and he is doing a fantastic job of not having that happen a second year in a row. And that was his biggest question going into this year. His biggest question coming into the NFL was fumbling. Could he make sure he doesn't turn the ball? He never turns the ball over. Then this upcoming year is about the sacks. He never takes sacks anymore in a much more complicated offense than they had last year. So I see the improvement, and I understand there's still a lot more development and untapped potential, and that should be exciting for Bears fans and something that should strike fear in anyone that hopes on the Bears' downfall.
Yeah, I know there was a quote by Ben Johnson that was out earlier this week where he was talking about the passing game needing to improve, and even people like JJ Watt were tweeting it out and be like, "Hey, see, he's not happy with the passing game." But the one part that they kind of overlooked was that he said the wide receivers need to do a better job in running their routes. Not that he was calling them out, but like, hey, everybody is involved with this not being up to the standard that we want. And I think a lot of it was because I was listening to our friend Kendall Valenzuela. She does a fantasy show. She joins us every other Monday for Fantasy Island. And her co-host today, Adam Ronis, was like, well, and they were talking about the downfall of Roma Dunze. And it's like, well, like when you're running for 400 yards, the receivers probably aren't going to get the workload that they were getting in the early part of the season. But he was sitting there talking about, oh, well, Roma Dunze was wide open in the end zone and Caleb Williams couldn't get him the ball. And I'm like, okay, first of all, Adam Ronitz, you're lucky that it was at the end of your show, or else I would have called in or at least texted Kendall and been like, hey, look, like that play was like Rome could have taken a step out of the end zone and caught it, even if he got tackled at the one. It's also a windy field. It's like you got both players could do a better job on that one. It's not,
but isn't that a point of that play? Is a point of that they are still targeting him for touch?
Yes.
That was a touchdown. If they had just, obviously Caleb slipped throwing it and Rome slipped trying to go, make the catch to get it at the goal line, but it's not like they're not targeting him. That was a touchdown any other day of the week.
Yeah. That was also his fourth read on the play, which for people who are like, he doesn't make his progressions, doesn't see the whole field. Caleb goes, no, bam. Didn't make it. And by the way, again, I know we talk about this all the time, both on this show and on CHGO, or even if we go on The Tape Never Lies. It's like, watch other games. I ask you, just watch other games. Great quarterbacks, people who you think are great quarterbacks, go out there and miss throws. Like nobody goes 100 for 100. 70% happens when you're not throwing the ball down the field, and when the opportunity presented itself to put the game away, to seal it on third down with a throw that, wasn't an easy throw. He still made the throw. So you cannot be this critical of a guy who's playing this. I mean, I guess you can. That's what fans do. But let's look at some of these questions though. Scott Esper says, watch Grady Jarrett ball out. His best games was in the division rivals. I think that Grady Jarrett is somebody that we're hoping can improve and make a big step and make his impact. The defensive line, though, it feels like if the Packers have one clear-cut advantage, or maybe the linebacker works into this too, their defensive line does have more name brands on it. That's something the Bears got to do better on this week, yeah?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, it's definitely like I said earlier, the battle is going to be in the trenches for this game. So if the Bears want any chance to win, they got to bring the heat on what they did in that Bears-Eagles game. And I just keep going back to, I cannot believe how they dominated one of the better front sevens in football, with the Eagles. And now you've got a front seven with the Packers. And to me, it's, something that hey, can the Bears do this twice? Why not? I mean, that's how I'm looking at this. And, as I've said, all the focus should be on Micah Parsons this week.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that, again, and this goes to the point that Robert Nash, our buddy Bobby Nash, giving Ben Johnson 9 days to scheme is a huge advantage. And Robert Nash, I agree with you. The 9 days is going to be a huge advantage for the Bears. And again, Matt LaFleur is getting extra time too, and it's okay. I don't know. I know they bring this up, and I heard Stacey Dales talking about this, about like, Matt LaFleur heard those comments during the preseason. They definitely took notes on it. It's like, but at the same time, it's also Matt LaFleur. Like maybe I'm misguided in this one, and maybe I'll have to come back on Sunday evening and be like, you know what? I didn't give Matt LaFleur enough credit. But at the same time, like I have a lot of confidence in our guy that I'm not afraid of making comments like that.
Well, I mean, my guy George was providing these stats the other day, but Ben Johnson is 5-1 up against Matt LaFleur as a play caller, obviously not as a head coach, but as a play caller with Detroit. And obviously Matt LaFleur was 11-0 against the Bears with Matt Eberflus. Then Eberflus left and he was 0-1, with Thomas Brown. And as Tyson said today, they didn't even know who was coaching what positions that last game of the year. And like, to me, like that, that game's so far away, sure. But at the same time, the fact that they were able to, like, everybody points to that game and say, oh, well, the Packers put their backups in at one point. The Bears were on their third string coaching staff at that point. The fact that they were able to go into your house and beat you, a playoff team, with, a hodgepodge of coaching staff and a team ready to get on a plane and go somewhere warm for the offseason. And now you're looking at a team that's a well-oiled machine, a team that is superbly coached, playing together, fighting as one, physical, tenacious, detailed. This is a different Bears team they're going up against. And it is interesting with Matt LaFleur and Jordan Love in Green Bay, because it does feel like their fan base is very Jekyll and Hyde with both guys. I mean, I think for the most part, they support Jordan Love more than not. But I have seen a few times throughout this season when they lose games where it feels like there's some not loud alarms being sounded, but like questions being asked about, who Matt LaFleur is to this, to the Packers organization, and how good can Jordan Love be. So now they've won a few games here. They win, against Detroit in Detroit on Thanksgiving, and now they're kind of catapulting Jordan into MVP conversation.
Oh God,
but I do kind of see the ebb and flow with the narrative around both those guys at times with Green Bay Packer fans who do have a very high standard for what they expect out of their head coach and quarterback.
No, it is very true. And it's funny, the nature of, well, Matt Stafford cannot be the MVP anymore because the Bears lost to Carolina. Well, let's put Jordan Love because his team just won. If the Packers lose this week, Jordan Love will not be in the MVP conversation, and somebody else will assume it. I will tell you, it'll not be any member of the Chicago Bears because
it'll
that's
be
not
Kyle Monangai.
Maybe Kyle Monangai. Clee says, usually in games like this, although we've rarely been in games with such a magnitude in recent years, but we usually fall flat in highly anticipated games. But now we can go toe to toe with anybody. I think what R. Lee is trying to say here is that we've been in this position before and gone out and embarrassed ourselves, which I would agree with. And I think Friday would have been that opportunity for that to happen. And I think that even the most optimistic of Bears fans, myself included, were going into that game against Philadelphia a little apprehensive, like maybe this doesn't go the way, like maybe we aren't that good. Maybe the haters are correct. Not fully believing it, but some doubt is bound to creep in because we haven't seen it. But now that we've seen it, and we've seen how well that they play against teams like Philadelphia, like how can you not be confident? How do you not want to get this game going right now? Like this, Braggs wanted to skip his daughter's birthday to get to a game recently. Now he's trying to skip Christmas to get to the playoffs. Like this is where the optimism is right now.
1,000%. And I do think the other thing that's interesting about this is most of the time when the Bears play the Packers, especially in Green Bay, it's normally at the very beginning of the season. And that's when either a random good Bears team hasn't established themselves, like in 2018 when Khalil Mack had first gotten to Chicago and they blew a halftime lead and Aaron Rodgers brought him back at the end. The Bears ended up winning the division at the end of the year. So when the Bears did play the Packers in Chicago at the end of the year, they dominated them because they were ready for them. Like I said, the good Bears teams kind of come few and far between. But then the other games, typically at the beginning of the year between Bears and Packers, are either overhyped Bears teams that fall flat on their face to Green Bay to start the year, or just bad Bears teams that get mopped around. Like we don't really see that many Bears teams at this point of a season going into Lambeau as the well-oiled machine for a big matchup. So when you say like, oh, they don't always win these games, how many times have we gone to Lambeau and been on a heater like this in December? It hasn't happened very often. And I do feel like the times that it does happen, the Bears put up a pretty good fight, so I think it'll be interesting to see how this plays out. But, I don't, as much as we say we're all, kind of so hesitant at times because of the same old Bears. But I just think it's, as Bad Kitty just took the words right out of my mouth in the chat. We're not grandma's Bears anymore. I think it is taking all of us a little bit of time to like really just push all our belief chips in on that. And myself included. I keep kind of like holding on for dear life on that letdown game, just brace myself because we got the Browns in a week. So it's okay if we don't win this one because we got the Browns and we're right here in the playoff. I'll just hold on for dear life. And that's how I felt going into the Eagles game. And they mollywopped the Eagles.
Yeah.
They're not walking into Philly with that mentality. They're like, we're going to go in there and kick their ass. And now here we go again with this Green Bay game. So I love it, man. The identity of this Bears team is a lot of fun.
Watching the Hard Knocks on HBO last night and watching the Eagles preparation going in to that Chicago Bears game, it gave me even more confidence. Like, oh my God, like the Eagles were pretty confident they were going to go out there and win that game. And I think they were up for a rude awakening when everything happened the way that it did. Perhaps Green Bay is the same thing, because it is hard to convince, especially when you hear the fans come out and say stuff like, hey, you beat our backups last year. This is your Super Bowl. I wonder if the players feel the same way, because if they do, they're going to get got. And I think it's hard, and it might be hard for Matt LaFleur to convince this Packers team that it's not the same sorry, but perhaps we should be using this opportunity to try to convince the Packers, like, no, you guys take this week off. Like, you got this. You always beat the Bears. Like, mail it in. Take a couple of days off. Why even bother practicing? Just show up. You should be able to win. Super chat here from Ron Winarski. There he is. Adam, do you think Caleb will pass for 4,000 yards? I thought the green thing will eat you on the NFL. That was a frog. What are you talking? It was a straight up frog. For anybody who missed it on NFL Fantasy Live earlier today. Hello? Huh? It's the fantasy frog, yeah? If you think that sounds like somebody that you might know,
watch out, cream sleeve.
Oh God. Yeah. I'm going to probably start it's the Brain Frog. I'm going to start a Twitter account for the Brain Frog. It's Larry the Brain Frog. And it did grab my throat at the end of the show. So yeah, I did manage to make it here for this evening's.
And the other point with the cream sleeve thing is people keep accusing me of being cream sleeve. And I just want you guys to know that my ego is not capable of doing something where the Bears are ripping their shirt off in the locker room and I'm not taking credit for it because I'm the one that manifested it. So I am not cream sleeve. And I think that should be the evidence, is that I'm not yelling to everyone how I did this.
Yeah, that's true. It has got to be like some sort of special person, because it is hard. It reminds me of an episode of Scrubs where Turk is trying to explain to Dr. Cox that he has no ego. So Dr. Cox takes credit for performing an emergency trach on a guy at a taco stand who was dying. And then Turk eventually has to be like, no, it was me, showing that everybody does have an ego. So it's neither one of us. Because like you, I would not be able to contain myself. I'd be like, I'm cream sleeve.
Right. Like if you remember Brad from San Fran trying to get Kyle Shanahan to the Bears, Brad was a great guy. But if Kyle Shanahan had come to the Bears, Brad would have revealed himself for who he truly was.
Wait, who was it?
I can't give it away, but Brad was a diehard Niners fan and really, really wanted Kyle Shanahan and was doing everything in his power to make him stay.
Wow.
He was a great guy.
So Brad was not a true 49ers fan? That's interesting. I'm shocked. It feels like something is scandalous. Another comment here. Kevin Byard is going to be hunting that short route off of J-Lo's left all game. Jordan loves one specific play. And if I noticed it, Kevin's going to notice it too. I will say this, and comes from the NFL research packet. The Packers are 17-1 in divisional games when they don't commit a turnover, something like that, or throw it in, but something like if they control the ball, if they take care of the football against their divisional opponents, they often win those games. They're 17-1 in those contests. The thing of it is like, and this going into that game against Philadelphia, everybody was saying the Bears were too reliant on takeaways. Like, oh, the Bears defense is predicated on taking away the ball. There's no way they do it against the Philadelphia Eagles. Well, they did it multiple times, including on the brotherly shove.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think? Do you think do you think this is going to be the key? Because I know. And it's funny because this is another one where Packer fans will argue, like, none of these, what are you talking about? When Jordan Love puts all that air under the ball and lets it drift, like that's not putting it in the harm's way at 50-50 balls. And I'm like, I think it kind of is. And I think that, okay, fine. Like, try it. I'm going to try it then. I think the Bears could actually go out there and get multiple takeaways against this Packers offense.
I think it's a law of averages that will be tested here on Sunday afternoon, because you've brought up a million times Jordan Love during Toyotathon is a demon.
He's good.
I think PFF brought out the stats, 91.9 passing grade during Toyotathon, first in the NFL, 4,000 passing yards, 33 touchdowns to 1 interception. 31 deep completions, first in the NFL. That's during Toyotathon. And then you got the Bears on the other side who have like 26, 27 takeaways on the season. And I think both fan bases would look on each side of the coin and go, well, that's not sustainable. Jordan Love can't just keep chucking it up to these guys. Surely someone's going to pick one of these off, but then on the other side of it, Packer fans are looking at the Bears going, you can't get all these. So look at the Vikings last year. They got all these turnovers, and then the bottom, the lid went on it, and the turnover stopped spilling out. So, I think this law of averages will be tested. So I think from my side of it, I kind of do lean that they should be able to get a couple off of Jordan Love, at the very least one, because, talking with some guys from Green Bay today, not Jordan Love, their running back, Josh Jacobs, if you look at our running game, the yards before contact, the Bears are like the best in football on amount of yards they have before they're even contacted by a defender. Whereas Josh Jacobs, it's the exact opposite. He's getting hit before the line of scrimmage, and yet somehow is still getting some yards. So when you look at Josh Jacobs' production this year, you would think it's not very good, but it's because he keeps getting hit behind the line of scrimmage. Well, if that's the case, then I think the Bears will be able to get Green Bay into some fortuitous third down and distance situations. And if you look at the Bears side of things, maybe the turnovers aren't sustainable, but the way the Bears play defense on third down is one of the best in the league. And so that's because of guys like Kevin Byard. That's because of Nashawn Wright and these guys. So I think is where the needle might move in the Bears' favor if they can get Green Bay into some favorable down and distances for Chicago and force Jordan Love to try to fit him in some tight windows. And now you've got playmakers out there in Jalen Johnson, Kyler Gordon. Let's see how many more snaps they get this week. And Nashawn Wright, Kevin Byard, Jaquan Brisker, you know the drill. I mean, to me, I think there is an advantage there for Chicago.
Yeah, I really do believe that third down is going to be the biggest part of it. And I remember last year, and we had these conversations on multiple occasions last season where it would be 3rd and 20, and you're like, we're going to give this up, aren't we? And then something would happen, and we'd break down, and Eberflus was playing that soft shell, and like everything, all these teams were moving down the field, and we didn't really stop anybody until we got to the 4-yard line. Then it was like, okay, now we're serious. Now we're going to go out there and stop somebody. The Bears have done a lot better job. And I think in that game against the Eagles, it really showed itself of like, oh, wow, like we're getting off, like we're forcing 3 and outs. We're forcing them off the field. And with the way the Bears are playing offense right now, controlling the line of scrimmage and really running the ball down their throats, it is an instance too where, when you do that, when you force a team off the field, and then you're just ramming it down their throats. And again, like it got a little prickly during the third quarter. And there was some obviously some anxiety to be had but ultimately in the fourth quarter, like the Eagles were done. Like they were just gassed. Like they could not stop the Bears. They seemed like, I thought they did a really nice job. And so when you get into those situations, when you get late into the fourth quarter, for a team that's been getting gashed and losing the time of possession, that's where it really makes a difference. The only other thing
I'll add to this conversation before you get to the next one, I apologize, but I think a big story from today that's kind of getting pushed aside was Andrew Billings was in the concussion protocol after the game was over. And at that point, just because of how concussions go in this league, I really was anticipating Andrew Billings not playing in this game on Sunday, which would have been a huge loss, an underrated loss. Because when you talk about controlling that line of scrimmage, and I keep talking about trying to get to third down, to not have him, and I thought he had a really good game against the Eagles. It had an impact on the tush push, had an impact on the Kevin Byard interception play. If you go back and watch the tape, he was a full go at practice today. So
nice.
That to me, I think, was one of the bigger stories coming out of Hallis Hall today in terms of, guys that'll be available for Sunday.
Huge implications for the game on Sunday. And reminder, if you are not going to go to Lambeau and we're wondering where you should watch the game this weekend, might I suggest Twisted Shamrock Pub. If you're a real Chicago sports fan, and we're talking about the Bears, Bulls, Cubs, White Sox, Blackhawks, Sky, and Fire, you need to be watching games at Twisted Shamrock. They've got monster TVs in the private party room, main bar, and outside on their stellar patio. Swing by Twisted Shamrock, where Chicago sports come together. And as a reminder, I will be there Saturday, December 13th, doing a meet and greet. We will be doing a quick show, and as long as it's not snowing, my plane is scheduled to land at 4:30, and from there, I will be whisked to Twisted Shamrock to do the show. Want to get to this one from Jesse Sullivan, who says, what is the main reason that Ben Johnson kept saying that they will be playing the best in December, even though that's their toughest stretch? Running game, cohesion, getting healthy. I think a lot of it is all three of those things, but you got to remember, Brad talked about this early on in the show, is the Bears were just starting.
He called me Brad. He called me Brad.
Oh my God. Why did I say Brad?
Because we were just talking about Brad from San Fran.
Dadgummit. You suck. I got Inception.
He's been revealed. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut off your thing.
I unmasked Brad. But the thing of it is the Bears were in an install and trying to get things sorted. If you remember, early on in the season, the Bears did not have their running game completely organized and completely healthy, and then eventually it started taking off. Now we're starting to see how the running game opens up everything else in this offense, time of possession, everything else. That's why Ben Johnson was saying that. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, he said it in his introductory press conference, I believe. So like, this is a guy that just understands and appreciates and respects the process that is required to be a great team. He comes from Detroit, who it took them 4 years to kind of formulate what Detroit has become, where in their final year, they score 70 touchdowns on offense. They didn't get there overnight. Right. And so, I think he looked at this and, he set the bar of expectations and said that the plan is to win now. He looked at this roster and said, we can win now, but then also kind of pulled everybody back. With that being said, our best ball isn't going to happen until December. And I think he's just somebody as a detail-oriented coach and a process-based coach. He respects the process. He doesn't skip the steps, and he gets everybody on board. And his messaging, I think, not just to the media or the fans, but what he says to the players is important to him, because then that earns the trust of his players to him. Because if he starts making, promises that don't come through early on, then the players aren't going to buy in. They're not going to believe it. Their careers are on the line with their head coach. And if he's trying to sell them a bill of goods that falls flat, well, then how are they going to continue to follow his lead? He's got to be honest with them. And I think that's what we've seen from day one with Ben Johnson. So, to me, that's the reason. It really isn't the injuries or any of that stuff. It's just the fact that he understands you can't skip steps to be a great team.
Yeah, it is one of those things too, because I know a lot of people want instantaneous success. And if you look at a team last year, the Washington Commanders, when they started going on their run, now obviously a big part of it was the win over the Bears, the Hail Mary and all that stuff, and it kind of propelled them. The Bears are now in their bag now, similarly, where they're using them, like, I hate to use momentum, but they're starting to put it together. Whoa, Cream Sleeve reposted the stream, Brad.
Hey, we are not worthy, Cream. We bow.
Brad is Cream Sleeve. That's who it is. It's Brad.
Einhorn is Finkel. Finkel is Einhorn. which would line up with Cream Sleeve's sense of humor.
Oh my God.
He
This would be so
absolutely
amazing.
could be an Einhorn.
What if it's Spice Adams? No. One of these comments here in the chat. Can we talk about the touch on Caleb's touchdown pass to Kmet? Yeah, nobody wants to talk about that. That was one of the best throws that I've seen from a Bears quarterback in quite some time, dropping an absolute dime, typical Caleb fashion, leaving his feet like Derek Jeter, going deep into the hole at short and throwing a ball and just landing it perfectly. Buttery soft right into the hands of Cole Kmet on a play too, where you're like, gosh dang it, Caleb. DeAndre Swift. Okay, great job, sir. Great. Yes, let's call a ball game. I just love that. Was such an amazing. I don't know what.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I keep.
No, please. No, please.
To me, that is what Caleb does best. Like that play, we've seen him from his first preseason game 2 years ago, where he can make that throw. And to me, I think the more notable throw in terms of touch was on 4th down across the middle to DJ Moore. That was a moment where they had to have it. And it was also a throw that needed to kind of go between a couple defensive linemen through a window. And it had to have the right amount of velocity, not too much, not too little. But that is something that he still has to elevate his game on, is when to throw the changeup versus the fastball. And so, yes, the downfield one was unbelievable, and I think completely highlights what makes Caleb Williams great and worthy of a number 1 pick. But to me, that throw to DJ Moore that was prior to that in the 4th quarter was his biggest moment in the game to me, of kind of trying to correct and get himself on track and in rhythm. And then he made a few more throws, one to Colston Lovell into the sidelines, and then, of course, to the touchdown. So he built himself some momentum and confidence. But I think it started with that 4th down throw to DJ Moore. So I encourage anyone that's really looking at that touchdown, go back and watch the 4th down throw, and I think you'll be maybe even more impressed because of the moment and the gravity and when you consider the inconsistencies prior to that, how he was able to settle himself and make that throw.
No, yeah, it was there were actually a couple of plays too. He had a really nice throw to Luther Burden III in a play where Luther just lost his footing on that turf there at Lincoln Financial Field, where you're like, God, he threaded it between 3 guys. It looks bad because the result is bad, but you're like, well, if Luther is still standing, that ball hits him right in the numbers. And again, we're talking about a different inflection on that game. But again, football is an imperfect game and things happen and people slip and you can't let it go. And I think it's why when Ben Johnson goes back and looks at the tape, he's satisfied with what he's seeing, because Caleb's making the right reads and right throws. And sometimes they miss, sometimes they don't. But that's just football. Andrew is asking too. He's like, are we hoping for good or bad weather? And again, this goes back to the point that I was talking about earlier on in the show. Like, this Bears offense travels in any weather. And if it's cold and they're cracking back on people the way they were cracking down on some of those Eagles, I kind of want it to be cold. I think that this is the kind of weather, like, for years, you always talk about bear weather and stuff like that. And this is why we want to still have an outdoor stadium or whatever. I think this team actually reflects a team that would play really well in the cold weather and the elements.
Yeah, it absolutely is. So from all indications, from what I've seen so far, it's going to be in the low teens, but dry. So I think weather-wise, it should be pretty good to go. But the Bears have been battle tested in the elements, whether it's the cold or the rain or the snow or whatever's been thrown at them, even early in the season against the Saints and Commanders in slippery conditions, they've been ready. So I think as long as it's dry, it'll be a breath of fresh air for Chicago. And we've already been dealing with a ton of cold weather here a lot earlier than normal, at least in recent history here in Chicago. So I think the cold they're prepared for as well.
Yeah, if it's this cold in the fall, I don't know what I want to say about the winter, but still, it should be a great game. I hope it's a cold weather game, because I think the Bears would thrive in that kind of environment. And I think that Ben Johnson will have them ready. By the way, speaking of which, I want to thank everybody for being here today. A big thanks to Cream Sleeve for reposting it as well. Like, we're getting some run here. If you're new to the show, I know a couple of you said this is your first time catching the show live. Thank you so much for being here. Make sure you like and subscribe to all the social media accounts. We do appreciate it. If you haven't caught us on Threads yet, Threads has been a lot of fun as well. Go check us out there. But, Greg, again, thank you so much for being here. I know that you will give your prediction on CHGO this week. I hope I wasn't thrilled that you picked the Eagles last week, but still, do what you got to do. Let your heart guide you.
I didn't get any thank yous for that. In an alternate universe, if I had picked the Bears, they don't win. Yeah, it is. If everything had to be what it was for the Bears to win, I picked the Eagles. I sacrificed myself, and the Bears win, and I didn't get any thank yous for that.
Well, thank you. Thank you for selling out the Bears just for your own selfish interest. Hedging like a Packers fan to be able to be like,
I got to hear it from Hogue and Carm. I'm competing with them on the pick'ems each week.
Yeah.
And letting Hogue get bragging rights on me last week. So I take no pleasure in being wrong. All I care about is and that's the other thing. When we talk about, this culture on social media being the smartest fan, I could care less I think I'm notorious for saying the dumbest things ever into a microphone. Right. Christian Solid in the chat can relate. So I just want the Bears to win. I don't care if I'm wrong until the end of time. I'll save all the right takes for you, Adam. Nobody's touching you in terms of good predictions.
Well, I got to imagine too that Carm on the season has to be 3-9 in his Bears picks. Is that accurate?
Carm is 3-9?
I would imagine, right? Because I'm assuming.
Oh yeah, because he always picks again. Yeah. No, he's actually pretty good at the picks normally, but he also picked the Eagles last week, so we're both in the box of shame.
As you should be. But listen, want to thank you so much for coming in here this afternoon or this evening for a lot of you. Appreciate everybody being here. Thanks so much. We will be back soon with more content here on the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank. So for Greg Braggs, you can catch on CHGO the rest of the week. I'm Adam Rank. Thank you for being here. Bear down. And Sammy, go ahead and play us out.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Adam Rank on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.